One of the biggest weaknesses of the lizard folk is their slow speed. They only have a few true fast-moving units, and this is one of them. I'm calling it the best flying missile unit in the game, probably the best flying unit, a multi-model unit in the game in general. But yeah, Terradon's very powerful tool for the Lizardmen. This one from Nameless on Discord. A big thanks for these replays. They're almost a month old at this point, but I'll take them. Give me an opportunity to talk about these Terradons. So yeah, we'll get back to them in just a second. As for the rest of this anti-Dowie build here, we've got Nakai the Wanderer, which is always nice to see. He's a fun one. Croxagors, got some Red Crest, Saurus, and Skinks all spread out super wide here with some Cold One Riders, Manticore Summoner up in the air. For the Dwarfs, they've got some guns and some cannons. Thorny Ironbrow, the Ethereal Rune Smith, Belagar Ironhammer, some miners with charges, Longbeards, yeah, Giant Slayers and so on. But nice Amber Spear coming in, does a pretty decent amount of damage. It's better to cast that from the ground angle, but, you know, Skink Boy up in the air gives him some extra utility. But the biggest thing for the Terradons is, again, their speed, right? They're fast. They also have poison missiles, which means they can, like, not only slow down and control units, but here they come in for a really nice pick on this cannon. The guns are going to turn and respond, and the Slayers will also move in, so the Terradons will have to move away, but a nice little quick hit and run, and they're not complete pushovers in melee. They're not great melee combatants, but 65 weapon strength, only 16 charge, but only 8 models too, but that 65 weapon strength means if they do make contact, especially on something like an artillery crew, they can get some damage in, and the drop rocks in particular gives them quite a bit of DPS. Unfortunately, the guns here focusing all on the Skink Priest, now turning their attention to the Terradons, but that is also another role of Terradons as a distraction, right? Because the guns are not shooting these Croxagors who are currently mulching in melee. We've got some Slayers fighting them there, Longbeards with great weapons moving in. They'll do some okay armor-piercing damage, but Nakai and the rest of the Croxagors unopposed at this point as they trudge across the battlefield, the guns now being forced to reposition. And also the Terradons firing in very cost-effectively at those Giant Slayers. Terradons, if we do take a look at their DPS, it's pretty good. Considering they only have 8 unit models, 74 damage over 10 seconds, not bad at all. Pretty quick reload time, only 13 AP per shot, but 27 non-AP gives it, what, about 40 missile damage overall? Yeah, so pretty good stuff. You can see they're chewing on these Giant Slayers very efficiently. The poison also, of course, is a very good effect to have on a flying 360 shooting missile unit. Makes them one of the best control tools in the game. And nice drop rocks coming in here. Get some decent contact. The drop rocks, again, a huge damage spike that you can use. But in general, the ability to control and just deal that consistent DPS from the air, it's almost impossible for many air units to even catch them. Your best recourse is to try and shoot them out of the sky, which granted you can do sometimes. You can see there the Thunder is trying to do so as Nakai absolutely pummels them. Also getting attacked in the back by Belagar here, but they'll keep fighting. I mean, they have decent leadership as well. They'll kind of hang around here into the late game, and they can be used also to chase routing units in the late game, which is another big one. And Nameless here has specifically asked for some feedback on these replays. One thing is I would absolutely detach one of these Terradon riders to go chase this cannon crew off. Like right now, they're going to be able to come back and potentially get back on this cannon here if he doesn't get it in time. But here we've got a nice pitch duel between Nakai and Belagar. Nakai is definitely overpriced. He's not terrible. Like, I wouldn't put him in the bottom 5 lords, just because, I mean, he's decent speed. He's got some okay mass. His support abilities are okay. And, yeah, his stats are alright. He's definitely too expensive for what he gives you, but yeah, Belagar there taking the damage. He's also got the Miasma of Despair on him. Some bad RNG for the Dwarfs. Good RNG for the Lizardmen means that Nakai's going to win that fight pretty decisively. Revenge Incarnate and the other buffs being popped now, though. Belagar not going down easily, but just a couple more hits, and there it is. Ooh, actually, Nakai uses the Primal Roar, throws him into an Enrage so that he can keep pounding on those Thunderers. You take a look, though, the Terradons all, I say, not completely healthy, but mostly healthy here, with a lot of their unit models still online. Trying to finish off these Giant Slayers and various other units, starting to finish off the last of their ammo as well, so yeah, again, just from the Lizardmen player's perspective, especially now that they're out of ammo, detaching them to chase any routing units, especially because dwarfs are relatively tough to rout, you know, you want to chase them off if you can. And just in general, Lizardmen don't have units which are great for chasing other units off. Like, you don't have any cheap pound fast attack units, right? Like, Clever Girls are just not super cost effective and fast enough in that role. Terradons, granted, you don't want them chasing expensive units off the field, but something like this cannon would have been a really nice target for them. Nakai's going to come in and potentially still defeat it in the late game there, actually detonates one of the cannons, but balance of power is turning slightly against the Lizardmen as the runesmith here, the ethereal runesmith, Thorny Ironbrow, will count for quite a bit on the balance of power, but the Lizard Cav moving in now with Nakai, and the Terradons have basically used up all their ammo at this point. I think one of them might have a couple of volleys left, it looks like. But yeah, this is what I'm talking about exactly right here. Get down, start to chase these routing units off, pressure those Thunderers away, and in a late game situation against units that are equal or, you know, more expensive, it can be decisive. Actually, very decisive. So they do come do the same thing a little bit late to the cannons, but better late than never, I suppose. Belagar also getting finished off by Nakai there just about. And you can see the Runesmith pushing forward with remains of his infantry. Got a handful of Dwarf Warriors here, some Longbeards, Ironbreakers, one of each shielded infantry. Nice little platter selection there. And I do say platter because the Lizards are eating them up here, just absolutely chewing them to bits. Thorny's going to charge in there, but can only do so much. With the Terradons now pressuring away the cannon crew there. Krogscore's also chased off some Thunderers. And still, again, just chasing all these units off, exactly what they were meant to do, more or less, in this type of situation. All the ammo's gone, all the drop rocks have been used. Let's just make sure those Thunderers don't come back and try and make any kind of difference here. Because with Thorny, he'll be able to hold out for quite some time, and he'll keep this balance of power somewhat stable. A lot of those units will potentially want to come back, but with Belagar gone, I think that's basically it. Balance power is still very even at this point. I mean, I guess Thorny's got a chance, but I think Nakai can probably take him on. Maybe Nakai can't. He's low enough on HP at this point that it might be a little bit risky for him, but we'll get in close. We'll keep the Terradons in the background as they kind of swoop and swirl there. Get the big boy Nakai. He doesn't get enough time in the spotlight. Honestly, it wouldn't take much to make Nakai, like, much more viable. Like, just a minor cost reduction, honestly, would make him a lot better. Now he's going to get in here and start to mix it up with Thorny himself. He doesn't do magic damage, so that would maybe be another thing to make him slightly better. But he does enough weapon strength that he just smashes the Ethereal Runesmith here. Terradon's now coming back. Hawk Sentinels have physical resistance. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think they have magic attacks. I was trying to remember, but nope, indeed not. But yeah, that's basically it. Finally, the balance power starts to turn as a lot of the dwarf units actually properly shatter, and it gets down to just the Runesmith. Get back in with Nakai here. I feel like the Terradons are somehow very appropriate in this, like, in the Badlands. Like, I get why they put, Tic-Tac-Toe's home, I know, is probably there in the lore, but it kind of just seems thematic somehow to have the Terradons, like, flying around in the desert in the Badlands. I don't know why. No idea why. I don't know, just looks kind of primordial, I guess, out here, with all the, like, orc architecture and so on. Dwarfs will be sent packing back to their holes, though. The dwarf player's going to go ahead and throw in the towel there, and big thanks to Nameless, a.k.a. Tony, for sending that one in. He sent in quite a few. I didn't get the chance to review all of them, but this is one I wanted to bring to you guys, because it's a pretty good example of, even though the Terradons, I mean, they, collectively, they definitely paid for themselves. None of them individually got chevrons, but just the utility role to be able to come in here and disrupt the cannons. And I mean, even if the guns had turned to shoot earlier, it's still, right, that's not damage that's being done to these Krogscores, to Nakai, to the Cold One Riders on the approach, right? That's damage that's being redirected elsewhere. And from the distraction portion, you know, forcing your opponent to make mistakes, as I've said many times, is a major strength of missile cavalry, and especially flying missile cavalry, where you might stress your opponent out even more just by being nearby. Like, they might have to just straight up keep units standing passive in reserve to maybe block you if you come down to the ground to take out their ranged units. Yeah, there's just so much utility there for so many different roles that they are absolutely... They're one of the best skirmish units in the game in general, but definitely the best flying unit and best flying multi-model unit and best flying skirmish unit. Kind of a little bit convoluted there, but you know what I mean. Yeah, they're just incredibly, incredibly strong. Let's go ahead and just kind of finish up the discussion here. In terms of comparison, flying missile units, there's not too many flying missile units, and none of them can shoot in 360 except for the Terradon riders, right? And the poison is a big thing. They also have the fire leech bolas, which are kind of there. They have some okay, like, AoE explosion damage, but what am I doing? Here we go, Lizardmen. Yeah, I mean, Terradon's 600 points is also not a lot to pay for these guys. The drop rocks give you a really nice damage spike. 90 range is not great, but it's pretty on par with other javelin units of what you would expect. You come in here and take a look. Warriors of Chaos, I believe, are 90 for their javelins as well. Their horsemen, 80 even. Wow. So especially in matchups like, again, Warriors of Chaos, and Norska, Dark Elves as well, actually, like, can't really outrange Terradons very efficiently. Even for Empire, Pistoliers are probably one of the best direct counters, in that they can try and avoid getting hit in melee and deal a ton of missile DPS very quickly, but they will also take some decent damage. And on the Lizardmen side, if you can get in a position to use your drop rocks, that will turn the fight pretty decisively. I mean, granted, it's still not super cost effective for that, to use the drop rocks from the Terradons there. But anyway, just in general, if you compare, I guess maybe I'm going back on the... If you want to call them Missile Cav as well, then maybe they're also better than the Salamanders slash... yeah, which I know is still controversial, and I may not be right, but the Salamanders and the Razordons. But anyway, yeah, in terms of flying missile units, you've really only got, like, gyros and gunbats. Gunbats are pretty good. Gunbat's damage is more reliable, especially given that you have these armor-piercing versions, you have the bomber versions as well. They are very oppressive, and I mean, you don't even necessarily always need the handgun versions. Even these non-armor-piercing ones, with the armor debuffs that Post has access to with your Hornswaggle and Taunt and so on, even the pistol droppers can be quite good, but they don't have any bomb abilities, and again, can only fire forward. The gyrocopters obviously can fire forward as well only, and they also have a bomb. More expensive though, again, flaming damage, but no poison, no 360 shooting, less unit models, so they actually do, I guess, less DPS than the Terradons. The steam gun, I mean, it does have an explosion, yes, so this isn't probably 100% correct, depending on how many targets you actually hit with it, but yeah, that 360 shooting poison in particular is what makes them so insanely strong. Combine that with the good DPS, the Vanguard and everything else, they are pretty squishy, pretty low HP overall. Less than 3,000 is quite squishy. So their biggest vulnerability is ground units shooting up in the air to hit them. But even then, if you can get in and get like one good drop rocks cast to eliminate your opponents, like let's say they have peasant archers, for example, with relatively low leadership, if you can get in and bomb the peasant archers and, like, I don't know, maybe even rout them potentially, you could generate your value and, you know, sort of check something off of your win condition if you do need to get rid of ranged units, all from that. And even if you take a lot of losses, you might even lose the unit entirely. One drop rocks can pay for the unit in and of itself, you know, in an instant. So something to keep in mind if you're getting shot from the ground. If it seems like it's the appropriate move, which it can be hard to judge, but just, you know, a nice doomed airstrike, definitely a viable option. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification every time I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.